I'm gonna take you on a little walk around the 2005 Ford GT. We're gonna go over everything we've done to it ever since we had it new in 2005. So we're gonna start with the radar detector. We put in an Escort radar detector back in the day. It was state of the art. It isn't so much state of the art anymore, so we're contemplating putting in another Valentine one that we have left over. We haven't done that yet, but for all intents and purposes, radar detector is very, very important with this car. We're gonna start in the front of the car, and we're gonna talk about the tires. Ford sold us these cars with Goodyear Eagle F1s. At the time, they were a compromise choice that Ford made. There were some aspects of the car that performed better with the Goodyears and other aspects of the car that performed better with Bridgestones. But after, I think, one set of Eagles, we went with the Bridgestones, and that's what we have now. We've got Potenzas in the front and Scuderias in the back. The Bridgestone Scuderias are famous for being the car that the Ferrari Enzo came with. So now we've got it on the Ford GT. All right, so now I'm bringing you to the door. This is one of the admittedly controversial aspects of what we've done to the car, but it's easy to get in and out of, whereas before it was a pain in the butt. So the way that the original car was designed is that the part of the roof comes out with the door, and it swings almost on an axis. So if you have a car parked right next to you, you basically can't get in the car. This beautiful looking bracket that allowed it to become a butterfly door. I saw it for the first time in 2015 at the Ford GT Forum Rally 10, and while I was there, I decided to order a set of the hinges and left the car in Detroit with Rich Brooks, which is called the GT guy. And he did the mod and sent it back to me later on. But just so you know, just so you see how this one opens and closes, I am going to close it for a second. It just comes right down and into the car. So to open it, we have to press these pressure switches, which are a little frustrating at times because they don't always work very well. They're a little bit imprecise. But this is basically how it opens. And it swings right up, and you can go in and out of the car basically with no impediment. So come around this side, and we're going to go over the inside of the car. I'm going to go swing around the other side and tell you a funny story. I had a friend of mine that is incredibly strong, and when he sat down, he reached over for the seat belt and pulled this strap completely off the leather. So needless to say, he was quite embarrassed with it. I played it off, but we had to get the entire seat back redone in leather. That cost about $1,800. So it was quite expensive lunch that I took that day. Now here you've got you can probably see we have these buttons. They are completely cosmetic. The car came without the buttons, and I will remove one now to show you. So that's how the car came. But it's really a cosmetic thing. They're called the seat buttons. They pop right in. There have been quite a few forum members that have been quite entrepreneurial and creating products for the car. And I want to show you the seat back rail here, that the aluminum insert. This is a billet piece of aluminum. It has the GT 05 logo in there. And that was also aftermarket. The same friend of mine that did those created these engine braces that you see here. They're all billet aluminum, and that also led, the day I changed these engine braces, I inadvertently dropped one of these screws inside the engine and or inside the engine compartment. I didn't know at the time whether it had actually fallen inside the belt or not, so I was really concerned about it. But we couldn't turn on the car, and we had to put it up here on the lift in a way in which we could access the bottom of it, take the screws out, and when we were able to clear it enough, the screw was right there within arm's reach. So we replaced it, no problem. It was a pretty easy fix. So we've covered the engine braces. We're going to talk about the AccuFab throttle body that we have here. That's also aftermarket. And then we've got the GT Guy exhaust. That's also was put in 2015. This one replaced the factory Ford Performance aftermarket exhaust, which was adequately loud, except that it apparently the internal baffle came apart after a while. I guess it wasn't soldered on well enough, but I couldn't tell until one of the technicians that would take care of the car told me. He goes, look, it sounds like it's rattling inside. So that being said, we replaced it, the shocks and the coil springs, a few years ago because they started leaking a little bit, and well, we got that solved. Let's go around the back. And here we're going to show you the side vents of the engine. All these 4 vents really extract all the heat from the engine, and they look almost factory, but they're not. They're aftermarket billet aluminum. Both the white and the black ones, also done by my friend that did the engine braces. All right, so we are going to come and show you the bumper delete that we had to do to the car. The normal bumper would come out of here with 2 brackets and had just a normal looking bumper that really actually stood out of the car. It's one of those things where you almost don't notice, but once you commit to this beautiful camtail rear end, then you understand how ugly it looked before. So I've got the bumper. If I ever need to replace it, I can do so very, very easily and at very little cost. But I personally like the way this looks. It looks very tough in my opinion, and this is how it's going to stay for the time being. In 2015, when I removed the bumper, I also decided to put a backup camera. If you've ever tried to back up a Ford GT in a parking spot, you quickly realize that it's almost like playing Russian roulette. At some point, you are going to bang up the diffuser. So with the installation of the rear view camera displaying in the rear view mirror, that problem goes away. Well, I think it was like a few $100, and it was really well worth it. So I also wanted to show you one of the shifters for the radar detector that we currently have installed. They're kind of obsolete, so nonetheless, what I wanted to show you. I also have a beautiful carbon fiber framed, you can barely see it, but carbon fiber framed license plate frame. So it's the same one that I have on the GT2 RS and the Ford GT, so I figured I'd buy 3 of them. One of the other cool things I think I did to the car was the smoking effect of the rear lights. We've got this one, and we also have the side marker here that's also tinted. Now we're going to talk about paint protection film. These cars really, really, really need paint protection film. There's a lot of exposed area, and that's one of the things that I kind of waited and waited and waited till they were more advanced. But I think it was like 2 years ago that I finally decided we're going to, put paint protection film on it. We've done the majority of the car except for the rear, this section here. But the back of the car is done. All the sides are done, and we had to just do one minor repaint because of a rock chip, which would have been completely avoidable had I done the paint protection film earlier as opposed to later. But nonetheless, you live and you learn. The other two cars have complete paint protection film, as does the new Raptor. So we bite the bullet every time we get a new car that we want to keep for a long time, and we want to keep clean and without dings, and that's what we do. So before we leave the engine bay, we forgot to talk about two important things. The first one is the jewelry, what I call jewelry, that we put on the car. Every single liquid reservoir has a beautiful billet aluminum and painted cover on it. And if you look here where it says, where the valve covers are, we have a beautiful plate made by the same company. I think it's Project 123 out in California. And it says "The Legend Lives 4GT" and the 05 logo. So the other thing we did to the car is we put a smaller pulley on it and we reflashed the engine. So it's hasn't been taken to a dyno, but I've got to think if it came from factory at 550, it's got to be in the 600s, somewhere in the 600s, with all the little things we've done to it. So once we removed the original rear view mirror, we had to replace it with the one the camera, but we lost the downlight that came from factory, and I replaced it with a LED strip that is actually really, really cool, and it gives you a lot more light than what we had before. So I'm very pleased with how that came out. That kind of shows you how anal I am about the details of this car. If you look real close, I have put a film on top of the front windscreen. It's called Clearplex. By having added the Clearplex film to the front windshield, we have no worries whatsoever about any rocks breaking the front windshield. That is going to give me a lot of peace of mind going forward with regards to the maintenance of this car. So the last thing I want to talk to you about is something that we removed from the car, not added to the car, and that is the side stripe. So basically what we did here is a hybrid side stripe delete. That's actually one of the things that a lot of cars that have side stripe deletes are sometimes worth more, or some people think it's worth more. It's irrelevant. I liked it with the stripe on and had it on there for, what was it, 10 years, 11 years? But I'm really liking how clean this looks here. So what did I do? I removed the old stripe. We had to buff it quite well and make it where you couldn't see it. Had to go a little bit deeper than I'd like to have gone, but I think it's seamless now. And this is actually quite rare to see a car without the side stripe that actually has 4GT written on it. So I know what you're thinking. His car came with side stripes and he removed half the side stripe. Well, you'd be right. And somebody else might be concerned about what the value of the car, what I did to it being a hindrance to the value. I don't care. I like the way this looks like this. If I ever want to put the side stripes back, I have another set that I bought from Ford. I can always do that in a heartbeat. No big deal. The car is back to stock. We hope you've enjoyed this walk around, showing you the mods we've done to the 05 GT, but we're not done yet. We're going to add a lot more content to the channel in the next few weeks, and we're going to bring you a lot of neat cars, not just the 2RS and the new 4GT or the trucks, but we're going to bring you a lot of neat content with other surprise cars that we've got planned for you. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to do so now, and also hit the bell icon so you can be notified when our next video drops. Thank you all very much for watching, and have an amazing day.